Good morning, everyone. I'll call the Committee of the Whole work session to order, where we are supporting community through quality public service at 10:30 a.m. on Tuesday, May 20th. So we have an agenda of the minutes from the previous work session. The Northland Climate Resilience Collaboration is going to be presenting today. Sawtooth Bluff private property follow-up discussion, and the 2026 budget guidelines. We also have minutes of the standing committees from Airport Advisory, Budget and Facilities, Building Committee, Highway Advisory Committee, and Personnel Committee from past meetings. So I'll turn this over to the Northland Climate Resilience Collaboration introduction.
All right, good morning. I'm Elena Hansel, for those who don't know me, and the district manager for the Cook County Soil and Water Conservation District. I have on the phone here Deanna, and I'm gonna not pronounce your name right, Gielhode. She's with ARDC, and a little background, and she can maybe elaborate more. The ARDC reached out when Administrator Yorkie was here and applied for a NOAA grant, and it was to build climate resiliency along the North Shore. There is a map provided, or you'll see one, and it's quite extensive. It's through Lake County and through Cook County and through part of St. Louis County. It encompasses more than just environment. It encompasses a lot more, which Deanna can explain because she's the lead on it. I was reached out when they started the process from Commissioner Mills to have somebody on the Conservation District also be part of this process. And so actually Stephen Janessi, conservation technician, is going to be taking more of the lead on this, but it's our field season, and so I'm the only one in the office right now. So I am here to support Deanna and the work that they're doing as it relates to all of us and all of our work that we do each day. So Deanna, I'm going to turn it over to you then.
Wonderful, thank you. And good morning all. Thank you for having me today at this Committee of the Whole meeting. Thank you for your work and commitment to this region, making it a great place now and for future generations. So before I get into that slide about the Northland Climate Resilience Collaborative, I did want to share a little bit of background. So yes, this is a grant from the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. This is a 4-year planning grant with a purpose to strengthen resilience against climate change and coastal hazards in this region. The idea of this collaborative came from many years of conversation in the region, like the 2019 High and Lows Conference, some other gatherings in 2019. In 2022, there was the Western Lake Superior Climate Resilience Forum, where like 115 people came together, and one of the recommendations was to create a collaborative in the region. This also came up in the 2023 Midwest Climate Resilience Conference in Duluth. So the entities that make up the leadership team are the folks that came together to write a proposal for this to create a collaborative to plan climate resilience and just resilience for the region. And when we're talking about resilience, in this context, we're talking about the capacity of a community, business, or natural environment to prevent, withstand, and respond to and recover from a disruption. So this can look like a whole lot of things, and this work is obviously already happening in this region. So this collaborative is to help add capacity and time for folks to kind of cross some of those political borders, whether it be with the tribal nations or the counties, but adding capacity for folks to come together and learn from one another. So during the proposal process, as Elena mentioned, Administrator Yorkie was our contact for Cook County. And yeah, that was kind of the grant launched in October. I think Commissioner Storley, you were at the November ARDC board meeting, and that I think was the first time I presented about this work. So we're still kind of in formation. But I am the coordinator for this work, as well as my colleague Seth Spencer, who's at the University of Minnesota, coming together. So let's take a look at this slide together. This is a 4-year project, as I mentioned, with the objective to create this collaborative. So especially this first year, we're focused on relationship building of this leadership team. As you can see, the folks listed there encompasses all the counties that are kind of in the upper watershed of Lake Superior, including Carlton, because they are in the St. Louis River, St. Louis, Lake and Cook, Grand Portage, Bois Forte, and Fond du Lac tribal nations. as well as the 1854 Treaty Authority, because that red outline there is the ceded territory, which is pretty much all within the boundaries of this project. So as these partners have come together, our work will be to develop a regional climate and resilience plan, and this will involve gathering priorities from the region. So one of the aspects of this work will be doing some engagement within Cook County in upcoming years, and we're also really excited to be working with these tribal nations. That's kind of my background, is working with tribes to add Indigenous knowledge and perspectives into this planning process, and to generally just build regional capacity for us to do this work together. So, as I shared, we're in the early stages. I've presented about this work to Lake County boards, getting on the schedule of the other two county boards, which is Carleton and St. Louis. I met with Commissioner Mills a couple of months ago about this work. And then working with Elena and Stephen from Soil Water Conservation Districts as they're part of the leadership team. We get together every other month. Our next in-person gathering will be up in Grand Portage in July. So mostly wanted to just let you know that this work is happening, and there will be some engagement in upcoming years. Some of the outcomes for Cook County will be increased knowledge sharing of kind of successes and what works in this region in terms of resilience, sharing priorities that can be part of this regional plan, being part of this united voice that can help the region get grants and input policy, having access to this regional data. The university is part of this collaborative, and they have a lot of climate data that can get really site specific, looking at increased storms and very specific to communities. So being able to incorporate that into planning, I think, will be helpful for the partners involved. As well as there'll be community education and feedback opportunities for Cook County to benefit from. So that is a general overview. Happy to answer questions if there's anything you're wondering about. Thank you.
Deanna, can you remind me how to pronounce your last name?
Gilhood, yeah,
Gilhood.
Dutch.
And I guess I would just add, I had the opportunity to join virtually one of the meetings, if not two, I can't recall now, but very wonderful group of people with incredible expertise and experience and passion around this, very open-minded, also trying to look at things critically. I was just very impressed with the group and really excited for where it's going to go.
Any questions or comments? Well, thank you, Deanna, for presenting this to us, and we move forward to working with you and the group and upcoming ideas and meetings and sharing shared interests.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for all your work.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Next item is Sawtooth Bluff private property follow-up discussion.
I've asked Amy Wolfert and Sue Abramson, who have been working on this as a community effort, to join us today in the conversation so that they can give you an update on what they're working on. And we also have information from the assessor. You guys can sit here. You want me to sit? I'll sit here.
Okay, I'll Susan. Could I have some of your water?
Sure. Thank you.
How much time do I get for this?
Well, I will give you a
10
little bit
minutes?
of time.
Like 10 minutes or 5 minutes?
Sure, 10.
No,
Or 15, yeah.
Generally, I just sort of ask if we could limit this part of the discussion to an hour or less.
Well, it'll be an hour or less, or I mean, my discussion will be an hour.
And the reason I'm thinking is this is going to be an ongoing discussion.
Yeah.
This is as much as an update and
Okay.
people to share what
Yeah.
they've been thinking about or ideas that they have.
Yeah. Well, before we begin, I wanted to ask, how come the Forest Service isn't involved in that northern climate resilient thing wherever she went? Anyway, that's discussion for another day. Well, my name is Amy Wilfert, and this is,
Sue Abrahamson.
and we both live on the old Ski Hill Road, County Road 64. I've been there since, well, I purchased land in 1994, and finally moved into my house in 2000. And Sue,
Bought a house in 91.
91. So actually, Sue's been dealing with the old Ski Hill challenges since 1991. And I was asked by Rena to come here and just kind of help you guys maybe understand a little bit better from where we as homeowners are coming from that live on that road, and the fact that we both worked in natural resource agencies or for them. And so we do have a love for nature, and we're concerned about nature, not only here, but elsewhere too. So, but, so the discussion, you can't talk about section 17, which is the Sawtooth Bluff section. You know, when you're talking about the county land and the city land, without talking about section, did I say 17?
Mhm.
Yeah. And section 18 is where John Sheep has his 80 acres. And below him is somebody called Roberts Americs et al. At 40 acres. And then the rest of that land in that area is USFS land.
So could you kind of guide us with the maps that we have?
I don't have those maps,
Yeah.
Jason,
So
but don't worry
she's,
about it.
she's got more copies.
Well,
This
we need
is,
to know.
right, if you
Yeah.
look at the very first page,
Yeah.
the yellow areas
Yeah.
are, I think, county land. The pinkish areas are city land.
Oh, that's
The white, right in the middle here with that's subdivided, that's John Sheep's, and that's the other private property there. So the white are private property,
Okay.
and then the green up here is all federal land.
Yeah,
I
this is
think.
all. Yeah, so when I'm talking about section 18, it's like this big chunk right here. When I'm talking about section 17, it's this big chunk here. And this is your Sawtooth Bluff Park idea area. And then here's the County Road 64 coming down, the towers. And then this is the private land, and federal. So does that help, you guys? Okay.
The other thing on that, on the second page here, the ownership map, Bob has circled that
Oh,
area as
cool.
defining the bluff. That's what would be considered the bluff, so you can see how those parcels
Yeah,
fall.
we'll get to that
Yeah.
discussion in a minute. Yeah, and that is all a part of your Sawtooth Mountain Range. That extends like all the way down to Finland, all the way up to Overland. You know, that's a very, in my mind, that's a very unique feature. And according to the DNR, with the, what is it, the Minnesota Biological Survey that they do, like Chell Anderson was quite involved in that, and she knows this area really well. It's rated high, and Sue has a map indicating that too. But anyway, so, but the reason, okay, so just giving you a little background of the area. But going back, as you can see, my binder is 3.5 inches thick. And if any of you want to look at my binder, you're more than welcome. There's nothing to hide in here. But the one thing I wanted to just start by reading is, and I probably can't find it now. I know it's right here. I'm not, okay. This was written in 2001. We actually started this process back in 1997 when Karen Blackburn gave a talk at the community center about we've got to do something with that land. And after that discussion, and they listed several things, from a golf course to a park to, and I'm talking about the county city land right now. And we met at your house, and there were a bunch of us involved. And from that discussion, we decided to create a nature center up there called the Sawtooth Bluff Outdoor Center. And I thought it was a good idea, but it just never got off the ground. So then coming back, and that was in like 1997, 2000 discussion. Then in 2001, there was a consensus agreement of the old Ski Hill Consensus Committee. And I just want to read this history real quick. Now, this is the old Ski Hill property. It isn't John Sheaf's property, but the old Ski Hill property is 600 acres located immediately north of Grand Marais. 400 acres is owned by Cook County and 200 acres is owned by the city of Grand Marais. In its entirety located within the city limits of Grand Marais. Around the turn of the last century, the property was logged and subsequently burned. In the 1950s and 60s, a portion of the property was used as a downhill ski area, including a chalet and rope tow, and I think it was operated by the Lions Club. A friend of ours, skied down there a lot. The ski hill operation closed in the early 60s. Two 250-foot radio towers are located on that property. More have come since then. The North Shore State Trail and the Superior Hiking Trail cross portions of the property. The Gunflint Trail and County Road 64 are located on the property. A water tank, a power line, and a brush disposal burning area also found on the property. Various proposals for development of the property have been proposed over the last 50 years, but none have come to fruition. Most recently, development proposals were requested by the Joint City-County Economic Development Authority. All the proposals were ultimately rejected. So I'm sharing that with you because I just want to give you a sense that we have worked hard on this. And as you know, we both worked for the Forest Service, so we worked in government, and I'm wearing out, but I don't know about Sue. Can't speak for her. But anyway, so there were a lot of proposals proposed on that property and good ideas, and we met with, and then John Clares Empowers did a request for development proposals, and they talked about the land, the soils, the runoff issues. I mean, it just, look at all this stuff they talked about, and it just goes on, and then we came up with the Sawtooth Bluff, the EDA mission. We met with Matt Geritschlager and talked with him about it, and and he looked me right in the face and said, "Don't worry, Amy, there'll be no development up there." Ha, ha, ha. I know Matt, so that's why I can say that. So, but anyway, so life goes on. North House Folk School looked at an idea there, potential, I don't know how much I want to go on about this, but I don't want to take too much of your time. But I think you're getting the picture that there've been a lot of ideas there, a lot of work, a lot of energy by people of Cook County that were working full-time jobs and also taking on this as their interest and passion. So, and then even, I don't know if anybody here knows Lloyd Shear. He was probably 80-something when we were discussing this. He's passed away since then. He even did a handwritten document on his thoughts and ideas of that area. And his one thing, takeaway that I really liked is he wanted to keep it for future generations. Because, we're not going to be here forever, but people coming after us are going to be here. So, anyway, and then, so then, moving on, this is kind of a nice map. This kind of helps you. This is, I can pass it around. Sue designed this map. A little old, but it just helps you, give you a visual, you can just pass it around. So, I don't know how much more, well, I'll let Sue speak.
What are you looking for us today?
So what I was hoping you guys could share is that you've organized this group.
Oh, okay.
And give us an update on
Yeah.
what you're thinking, how we might be able to raise this money. Mostly, that's what I was looking for from you guys today.
Okay.
And,
Okay.
just where you've been so far. And
Yeah.
I know that several commissioners have been thinking about this and also maybe getting some ideas that they could share back with you.
Sure, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yesterday I was hopeful. The three of us spoke with Christine Ostern.
Ostern, yeah.
And she was talking about she works with the Minnesota Land Trust, I think, and Trust for Public Land, and she mentioned there's federal grants to help purchase land. They will pay up to 50%, but the max is 600,000. And so she is going to contact Minnesota Land Trust, Trust for Public Land, and see if they're interested in looking into purchasing this, the federal grant. And so that, I think, is positive. And just the old Ski Hill Road, I was talking with another person from the road, and we're serious about wanting to purchase this, and we can dig into our pockets that we want to see it happen, so.
And you guys formed a group, right?
Oh, yeah, and Gary is a member of our group, and we're calling it Preserve the Bluff. Thanks to Gary, that was a good idea. So, and we met one time on the 7th of May, and now we're meeting this week, tomorrow, at the community center at 3:30 to 5:30.
Thursday.
Thursday, yeah, yeah, sorry. What day is it? Yeah, so, yeah, and that first meeting, it was a little rough. I mean, when you're trying to get started to figure out how to move forward, it's always a little rough. But I think we're kind of settling into our roles now. Dennis Kitila is in the discussion group. I don't even know if we're formally a committee, but he's kind of working with the Minnesota Land Trust, talking to these folks, like the Minnesota Land Trust, the Trust for Public Lands, the Nature Conservancy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just had to collect all my info here and been keeping notes and stuff and sending out notes. And she's my right and left brain, because I don't have a brain. No, I'm just joking, but got a lot on my plate right now, so. Anyway.
Dennis also talked with Parks and Trails.
Oh, yeah, the Parks and Trails folks,
and,
yeah.
They had mentioned that they wanted to see the court order that says she does have legal access. They needed to actually see it. And I'm not sure how to go about finding that out, but.
Hasn't that been reviewed by our department? Yeah.
So we can get access to that?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thanks, Jean.
And Mitch attended the initial meeting.
Oh, yeah, Mitch was there too.
And so discussions relative to, and I had walked the parcel with Mitch and Bob Thompson and other members, Kyle.
Yep,
Yeah.
Ulrich.
Yeah. So, and we took photos, and then we looked at some other parcels that were being developed with what is being proposed there, wanted to see. And this document that was handed out, thank you for printing that this morning, was something that just had requested. Rena and Bob and myself had initially met following our meeting. And the decision that was made at the time at the board meeting when Mr. Chief and representation came was that it seemed the consensus of the board was that they wanted to protect the land. Commissioner Starley, you were not there, but after basically hearing the input, the decision was made. My decision was made with the intent that county dollars wouldn't be used to purchase it, but that we would support in any efforts that were made to try to generate the money to purchase it. And then Commissioner Mills had said that he would like to see comparison values if we were to have an evaluation done, and then Bob had commented that it would take time and who would pay for it. The price that was being offered or proposed by Mr. Chief was a price that would stay the same whether we had a new appraisal or not. So all of those things, I think, led to the fact that I was willing to make a motion that the property would be purchased. It was clarified by attorney that we wouldn't purchase it, but the property would be purchased, and that we had till the December 1st to determine that.
Yep.
Subsequently, there's been conversation with Mr. Sheaf saying that it was his understanding that a determination would be made and paperwork would be in place by December 1st. I responded, that was not the intent of my motion. My motion was made in the context that we had till the December 1st. So I said that would have to be a further discussion with the full board as to how we proceed with which understanding. Those are things just to be mindful of, but still, the committee and its intent is to try to move things along.
Yeah, with a little engine that could.
Right.
Yeah, you know, and if Mr. Sheaf doesn't, I mean, it's more, I think purchasing this property by private entity and a Minnesota Land Trust or however, if somebody can help us pay for it, that's a heck of a lot easier than digging into our pockets and raising money, $475,000. I mean, that's the way I see it.
Right.
But I don't know if that's going to happen, but we're going to try.
So one of the other things that Christine brought up yesterday was that this could be a DNR scientific area. She's sending somebody up to do an evaluation of that, so I think these two might go along there because they know the trails to get there easily. She was also talking about conservation easements and a variety of other things. So she seemed to be a person really excited about helping, so that was a good thing.
Yeah, it was a good
But she said they would need, if it's a scientific natural area, they would need an easement to access it, but that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be an established road. It just means they have to be able to walk or something across another piece of land to do that. So since that other land is the county's land, it seems like that's something that could be worked out. Anyway, it was a good conversation.
Yeah, it was a very hopeful and positive, and, yeah, Deb.
There's another funding source called the Legacy Fund,
Oh, that's right, I've heard of that before.
and they pay 80%
Oh, they
of
do?
the retail value, of the market value,
Oh,
and it protects the land in perpetuity, I believe, from development.
do you know if that's through the state or the feds?
state.
State,
Mhm.
okay.
That was legislation that was passed in connection with waters, I believe, years ago,
Okay,
but those monies can
I
be
should know that.
be applied for.
And they
in-
do use
in
it
that
for
country.
buying up, I forget which area it was in, but logging companies got rid of a lot of their forests.
Oh, right, yeah. I can pursue that, because, yeah. I'll-
And I think the umbrella thing to note, and was the intention with the committee, is that the committee would like to purchase the property and then transfer fee simple over to the county. And the documentation that was provided was to inform, this is how you would do it legally, and can we do it, and do we want to do it as individuals in the committee or through an organization that is tax exempt? Do we want to apply for exemption? And will it be more attractive because of the tax exempt possibility as opposed to people who care about preserving the bluff and just giving? So all of that strategy, marketing strategy, positioning, and things like that, we're looking at anyway with the intent of
Right.
just purchasing the property. This documentation is documentation that Bob Thompson, the assessor, put together
did a nice
following
job,
our
too.
meeting with Rena and myself. And the intent here was to show the ownership. I think if you go to page 6, these aren't numbered, but it's this page.
Show me what color it is.
Yeah, it's this
Yeah,
page. It
okay.
counts 6 pages in. When you look at this page, it shows the bluff, which is the red area,
Yep.
and then you can see the parcels in blue that are potential parcels within that area. So what the point is in showing this is if we say yes to one, how many potentially would we have to say yes to? So if we say that preserving the bluff is intent, what's our exposure? And you need to look at it in the context of federal land, state land, county land, and private land. And so the blue are the parcels that are within that property. Later, I think that Bob put in there, and where I'm going with this is that if we say yes to one, we are in fact, whether written, making precedent, which makes us vulnerable, if you want to put it that way, to anybody else that say, which we did following the motion from the parcel in the 40 right below.
Right.
Well, I'll say
Yeah.
my parcel for that.
Yeah, I want the
And so how
same
many
deal.
do we have? And then the other thing that was asked of Bob was, how many potentially with bluffs that run throughout Cook County?
Well, the thing is, though, Gary, there is a North Shore initiative that was done in 2013
Yeah.
by the Minnesota Land Trust, so maybe they're looking at something like this. I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't worry about that so much, and I'll tell you why. It took 50 years to get us to potentially build a park on the Sawtooth Bluff property. This idea of, purchasing this piece of parcel, you can only bite one part of the elephant at a time, right? And I just think, this, John Sheaf, there could be 8 homes up there. And it's not that I'm against development, but I'm against doing, and I guess it's my perspective, and I want development done right. Because you have this mountain range, it's priceless on this planet. When you talked about aesthetics, that this is being driven by aesthetics, the Forest Service was developed on aesthetics. The Park Service was developed on aesthetics. All the monuments in this world that we go to, that's all aesthetics. That Sawtooth Mountain Range, in my mind, is aesthetics. And also comes the environmental, or the damage to natural resources. Once you build a house, you can't bring back, and I did the same thing. But you know what I did? I built close to the road, because I knew snow removal issue. I protected my trees, I'm planting trees, I'm bringing back what I took away. I don't think a lot of people do that, but that's just my mindset, And I'm kind of getting off onto a zillion different tangents here, but I understand where you're coming from.
And because, we're elected to represent the whole, that I think it's important that the board make the decision in the context of the broader, which is simply to say, and that's why the discussion at that meeting led to 2 things. It's
Right.
either a contribution to tax base or it's a contribution to aesthetic, and
Yeah.
aesthetic has value.
Yeah.
It just, we understand that if we make this decision, we can't be limited in our purview relative to its impact on other people who would have the right to come say, well, how come you did it for them and how come you did it for that? That's why matrix, or the basis under which decisions are made, is important so you can be consistent in their application. So what we didn't know, and Commissioner Mills said, I'd like to know if that's a reasonable price. We have the,
It's not, though.
well, we have the price of the 400 acre on Valley Creek Road near Murphy Mountain. That's 40 acres. That's listed at 400,000. That
Is that raw land?
yes,
Yeah, with
that
access.
comparable, it has a road, not developed,
Right,
but
yeah.
it has a road into it. So the difference, you'd say, would be, well, yeah, but it has access. It's not gonna have to go through what Chief property would have to go through. But that's 400,000 for 40 acres. The other thing, if you're comparing apples to apples, it's on top of a mountain.
Yeah,
You
I
can
know.
see the lake.
I know.
And so
That's
we
why they
want to be
don't.
fair, and our information needs to be, comparing
Well,
as much as possible,
Yeah, and
apples to apples.
and the thing is, I understand the fairness, because as commissioners, you have to represent your constituents, correct? And that's understandable, but the thing is, sometimes it can't be fair. I don't know how to conclude that. At what price, maybe? I guess, do you develop it? Do you let it be developed? And we have 8 homes up there? And you let this be developed, you got homes up there, homes there, go ahead, go do it.
Well,
It's just-
I mean, we have to look at every aspect of it. The other thing
Yeah.
is that we're saying that we look up to the bluff and we'll see it. That's why if you look at the last page here, I believe, that's taken from the parking lot.
Oh, yeah, I saw, that was kind of cool.
That's going up there, so,
Yeah.
and what we said is, we toured that property, we went and toured the development off of 7, and that one, the views there, you're guaranteed views there, but
Oh,
it's
yeah.
access right off the road
Yeah.
made it more
More
affordable.
palatable, yeah.
And the other thing you have to look at, and that's why on these parcels in similar setting, Bob included in here what the revenue is.
Yeah,
What the revenue generated from those would be.
yeah.
We, with limited revenue off of property tax in our county, because so much is government owned, we need to know the cost, because what you say yes to, you're saying no to something else.
Right.
And in the context of, when you take all of those elements that need to be considered, you prioritize those elements based upon what's important. And if the aesthetic and environmental takes priority over tax base, but we need to know, what are we talking about when we throw those words out? And some stuff ends up being subjective in its interpretation.
Right, I mean, so how are you gonna get there? What are you gonna do?
Well, I think you have to look at that, and the board has to make a decision. Here's the thing, on any one of these properties, let's just say that the intent is, in the community and the people that visit Cook County, tourism, everybody else says, we want to protect it, we want to protect and
Because
preserve
that's
that
what happened in the
land.
harbor, right?
That,
Yeah.
anybody who wants to do that, buy it and give it to the county, that's fine, but we can't do things that are putting a burden on somebody else that's trying to stay here, because they can't afford to live here, to ask them to pay it with taxpayer dollars.
Oh, yeah, I get
That's
that
why,
totally,
yeah, no,
Gary.
I understand.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying, anybody can say, let's preserve this, and let's have a campaign, and let's
Yeah.
support it.
Okay.
And if the ingenuity of the people that say they want it, they're willing to put the money there
Yeah.
and to do the effort,
Mhm.
celebrate that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that we as commissioners are making a decision, say, we're gonna take taxpayer money when
Oh,
people are
yeah,
saying.
I don't,
No,
You see
I
what I'm
don't
saying?
want that,
And
no.
it just needs to be clear.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I think we already knew that.
Yeah, I think
True.
that was clear.
But it's
Yeah.
in the meeting,
underscoring, and
right.
that's certainly the
Right.
basis under which the
Yeah.
motion was made.
Yeah,
Right.
right. So,
No, I think there's a lot of opportunity here to actually pursue this and make this happen. But I do think, to your point, that there's going to have to be some official kind of group that's a not-for-profit or something that can actually own something and then donate it back. You can't just kind of like, unless you find one of these land trust organizations that just say, we'll take it on wholly. I think in yesterday's meeting, also to your point, that piece of land, that 40 acres below Sheaf, where the woman right away said to us, well, I'll take that deal too. This Pandora's box got opened pretty quick. But she said in this one case where there was up to 600,000 that you needed a match on, she said, why not throw that property in as well? And just do them all at once and do that. Then pretty much all of the roads all the property without access up there would all be government, under government
Yeah.
ownership, federal or county or state, or city. So
Yeah.
I think
There's
and that's
yeah.
why I wanted to kind of limit this conversation, because it could go on all day. But I think we're at the beginning of it, and I wanted you to all be really aware of what these folks are doing, and Commissioner Gamble and Bob, and that there's a lot of things going on here. So if you have ideas, people have ideas, I would say focus them to these folks. This is going to probably, hopefully, go on longer than I'm sitting in the seat. So, although you are time limited. So I could see every month or every other month, them coming to this group, having a conversation, giving you an update on where things are at, new information. If that's kind of how I see it, but I'm looking for your input here.
I really think that is a wise direction to take. I know we had Christine come and present to the committee of the whole, if you recall, a couple of years ago. And so there's that angle, there's looking at an SNA, but I think there's lots of different opportunities in the legacy to look at ways that we can do this, and if we can capture all these properties at once, it's much more beneficial. So I really support it. I'm glad to hear about the meeting on Thursday. I didn't know about that. So is that?
Well, that's just, it's more of a discussion, we're in the discussion phase right now, but I think eventually, I mean, we're calling, I just kind of said we're preserve the Bluff now. I just said that. But Gary had the good idea of it. So we're slowly becoming formalized, and we have to keep it moving because we have a December 1st deadline.
And the umbrella basically is the energy, because as you
Yeah.
suggested, when beginnings are always challenging.
Yeah.
But the focus on the end game is what energizes that process.
Correct.
And where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
And we're saying we're willing to partnership with
Yeah,
whomever.
that's great.
In whatever means to look at it and to do the
Yep.
diligence that we need to do and put the effort. I
Yeah.
talked to Linda. I
Yeah.
talked to a number of different people after, the motion was made.
Yeah.
And if we can find out demographics, who visits here and where to
Yeah.
target marketing dollars under the campaign.
Yeah. You've been very helpful, Gary. I
So,
appreciate that.
Anyway,
Yeah.
but.
And I recognize you guys have challenging jobs too as commissioners in this county. I don't think it's an easy place to be a commissioner sometimes, because there's so many different people, mindsets in this county. But we could always use more housing. That's just a joke.
Appreciate you coming, Sue and Amy, and you'll have an update for us perhaps in a couple of months, some good
Yeah,
news. And we'll
yeah.
just let you keep us
Yeah.
posted, and you can come back again.
Yeah, and thank you for giving us.
Yeah, thank you.
for asking.
And
Thank
feel free
you
to,
so much.
email me or copy me if you're having meetings, because I'm getting a lot of input, because that is
Yeah,
my district.
that's
And I
right,
didn't
yeah.
know about it. so
Yeah,
thank you.
right, I forget, because you're right across the road from me.
Yeah. All right, thanks so much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and thank you, Gary.
Yeah, we'll see.
And Deb, you had a question?
No, I didn't, no, I said goodbye to you already.
Oh,
and I
okay.
said Thank you. No,
Oh.
I just wanted to say something
Oh.
else before I lost.
Okay.
No, thank you very much.
All right. All right.
Thanks, you guys. These
Okay,
are
we're
the-
going to move on to budget, so
We just have
everybody.
one
Pass those
statement
around.
from
It's got
Commissioner
one
Gamble.
update. And Brady, I think maybe we'll have
This
you
is a-
join us, Brady?
Gary?
Yeah. And
There's a chair for.
Gary,
I'm sorry.
about, we need property taxes type thing for development. At some point, this county will not have room for more people to come and buy land, and that's just how it is. There's nothing, you can't have infinite growth. So if they don't get to have land up on the bluff, well, they'll have to go.
Boathouses on the lake, and they'll have hoovering technology that allows them to live in capsules above ground.
They will, and they'll all be in the
submarine
East End.
hotels underneath
Yeah.
the water.
Yeah.
So Josh and Randy and Gail, you want to come up and join us up here too?
Should we scoot over so they can have a chair?
Together?
Have a chair, but.
Yeah, we'll scoot this way and then they can.
A houseboat. You could have housing in the harbor.
Like Seattle.
Yeah.
Well, don't, never forget that underwater hotel like they wanted to do.
There we go.
I might still have blueprints.
Change our zoning so we go higher.
Thank you for taking some time out of your daily schedule to come. We had a very good budget meeting, and we're going to discuss some of the possibilities and some of the things that may work and some of the things we have to kind of pivot on in the future.
So,
having us.
yeah. Do you guys all know these three people?
No.
Yes, no? Maybe you can introduce yourselves.
I'm Josh Engelman. I live up on 2226 County Road 7. Randy Knutson, County Road 60.
Gail Gieske, live on Greenwood Lake.
The beautiful Greenwood Lake.
Yes.
So these three represent the Budget and Facilities Advisory Committee. And if you recall, at a previous board meeting, I think it was our 5.5-hour marathon meeting.
Yeah.
We kind of got to the conversation about budget guidelines, which I don't think anybody had the stomach for at that point. So I suggested that perhaps we could take that up with this group, that Brady and I could bring some recommendations, discuss it with this group as public, as our, really advisory from our citizens to help us understand and get expertise. And Mike Carlson's joining us as well here. Make recommendations back to the board. And these recommendations, if you all agree with them or you want to modify them, these guidelines, well then Brady and I will get these to the MAT and we will work with them to do this. So I just want to set the stage on this just a little bit first. And I think we're in a unique budget year. I think often, budgets are set based on looking at last year's budget and, what was over and under, and then you put the numbers forward and then you go. And that usually works because things are generally in government pretty predictable from year to year. I mean, there are things that affect it, but it's kind of goes along like this. I think what makes this year unique is the uncertainty that we're facing, that not just at the moment, but throughout the rest of this budgeting process. Like, you could set a budget right now, and by December, things could be completely changed. Or maybe they're not, but during the year next year, things could change that you were counting on or that you had assumed. And so this particular proposal, I think, is put together with the idea of thinking about putting your budget down like you usually do, with a couple of maybe restrictions. But then really looking at your budget strategically to understand it in a different way in terms of where your funding sources are, what services you provide, how those things line up. If, your level of service, have you added, some grant dollars in there, something to increase the level of service or to make the service a little bit better? How is it all put together? So that if somebody pulls out a piece of that funding somewhere, you have some general understanding to know how to react to that. And so some of this is not about putting together the budget initially. Some of this is about managing that through the whole process. And I think it also, having it laid out like this, gives you as the commissioners a different way to ask the questions, right? Because, a lot of times we go, well, we need to cut the budget by 10%. So let's talk about that. So we say, okay, cut 10%. So everybody goes, okay, cut 10%. And let's say it's for office paper in the copy machines. Well, that wasn't a realistic cut, probably. People are going to use it, and then you're going to go over budget 10% on that, even though you cut it 10%. And that comes out of the fund balance or whatever. So cutting the budget in a way that you actually can manage those cuts is a different conversation than just like slicing 10% off of there. So with that, I'm not sure how you would like to approach this. Brady, I'm going to let we kind of started out with just a general understanding, but then we kind of took the point of view of what are the constraints, what are the things that we can't change, what are some assumptions that we're making, and where do we see the risk. So that's kind of laid out that strategy a little bit.
And I think it'd also be beneficial in the advisory council, the discussion nature comments. In other words, what are the comments that came through in our initial discussion to inform this document? That would be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, certainly Rena summed it up and everybody was a part of that. I did watch that meeting. I watched most meetings, but I'm pretty boring like that.
Wow.
To me, what...
Sorry.
Well, sometimes it's exciting. That's why I'm there. You never know. To me, most of our conversations really delved into the strategic impact planning, at least from my perspective, and that's where I kind of, dove into. The rest of it, I think you've all kind of talked about, but they're great things to see in there, the constraints, what are we going to see on the COLA, what are we going to see as far as health insurance, and then the big things, of course, bringing this kind of the forefront this year, which is probably something that I would like to see anyway continue to be used after this year. Maybe it might be a little bit manipulated. We're not going to have as many, hopefully, constraints or unknowns with the feds or the state and where that's going. So I think the planning part of this, is really kind of giving additional direction, well, because of your request, to look at it from a standpoint of what would help the commissioners make decisions, but more importantly, have the department heads be looking at it from a different perspective than they have, just like Rena said. So I think that's what we wanted to see in this, and that strategic impact planning is really the section to kind of focus in on as far as how this is going to impact the department heads, and then give you the information that hopefully informs you at the level that you want to be. I think the careful thing with this is not to make it too laborious for the department heads, you know, not to come up with 100 different scenarios on what if this happens, what if that happens, but just to make them more aware and to really kind of center in on core services and what are things out there that maybe they realize they don't need to do, but we as a community value and want them to do. So I guess that's the way I look at it. I don't know if Mike didn't, well, you know everybody knows you.
Yeah.
We all had to introduce ourselves.
Yeah, I've
so.
never met in person. Yeah.
Hi.
Hi, Jean.
Anybody
Well,
else?
in
Josh?
my opinion, part of it is too, you can get in the habit over time of every year you add a little bit here, a little bit there, and all of a sudden you have turnover, different heads or whatever, and all of a sudden you don't necessarily know everything going on in every department, because you see, I come from private business, you see private business, we added this, we added this, we added this. It just keeps going, you never go back and reevaluate, is it doing what it's supposed to do or not? It's there, keep going, whatever. Now, this way with turnover either in departments or county commissioners, or like me, I'm new on the advisory board, it's a way to educate all of us on what is going on in the departments and just be aware so we all have an idea of what the government is doing for us. Stuff isn't just getting lost in the shuffle because it's been year after year. So even if we're asking them to look at possible cuts, it's a good exercise to look at what you're doing and what's all happening, even if you don't have to cut anything.
So I think one thing that came out of this discussion was the idea, I mean, we had a conversation about, should we have them try to do all these different scenarios? That'd be pretty impossible. I'm just going to say, creating a budget like, say, for PHHS in multiple scenarios would be a very difficult thing to do. Or any budget, really, saying, well, what if this funding got lost? Or, you know, it would be pretty hard. But I think what we arrived on otherwise is this conversation where they would create a narrative that would accompany their budgets. You see that, I think PHHS does that. To a certain degree, I think the Highway Department does that, MIS does that. And some departments, they're going to look at me and go, well, what would be in my narrative? You know, I have these 4 services, and it's all funded by the county levy, and, you know, we don't really have much change in our budget. That's a narrative in and of itself. So that, you know, commissioners can see that. So I anticipate if we go down this path, that Brady and I will have a lot of meetings with department heads or with a new expectation of how to approach this or what that should look like. But basically the narrative would be these 4 bulleted points here, that they should be able to answer those questions.
And like you said, too, not all departments are going to come with the full complement of answers. It may not be necessarily appropriate. Right. But as administrator, you can kind of guide them through, that what might be appropriate for them.
Right.
And it's not intended to make work. It's intended to inform, and this is ways we can do it.
Right.
And intended to give them some guidelines, too, that they've already thought about in advance if something suddenly changes next year, you know.
I really like the fact that, you know, you talk about mandated services. We need to know statutorily what has to be required in each department, and I think it is a good exercise, and that's great information, not just for all of us, but for the public, so that they understand federal requirements.
Right.
That's the big thing I've found being on this advisory committee, that we have some citizens just helping the board and giving directions, and they know that it's not just decisions being made without their thoughts and inputs. So there's a lot of fear out there, we all have a lot of unknowns, and it's just nice to know that the county is taking it step by step this way, in a logical way.
I think it's important for the department heads too to, in the beginning, just say, this is kind of our budget for now, and then take these other areas into consideration as we move into more statistics, more things that we are going to experience from the feds and from the state, and then make some adjustments along the way, and not be too, like you say, worked up over, oh, I got to do this, and how much do I do this with the public, and how much this, so just department heads, if you're listening, we want to not make it that difficult in the beginning.
They're listening.
Have they given feedback on this?
No, they have not seen this. This is your discussion first.
Okay.
To see if-
I'd be very interested to see what their feedback is, because I think my fear is that it will create a significant burden in a challenging time already. But I could be wrong there. It might just come old hat to them to be able to answer these questions or prioritize the remaining services. You know, it's, again, I think I've expressed my lack of enthusiasm for ranking things in that quantitative way, because it when you try to quantitate, it gets rid of the qualitative, and I think and that qualitative is really the human aspect of really a community aspect and really what our end goals are. But I'm really curious to see what they have to say about the strategic impact planning, because that's really smart to do this stuff and to look at it and from that different slant. Up to the basics there, I'm curious about the second through the fourth bullet points.
Yeah.
Typically, those three are all brought to the board anyways. You know, we have openings. Is that staff increases? That means no new positions?
No new positions next year.
Okay.
So these are kind of these are like hardline recommendations that Brady and I threw in there that said in an uncertain budget year, you shouldn't count on like building your staff this year. You shouldn't count on
Buying new equipment.
buying new equipment
Unless it-
that's not already like scheduled or replacement or something, you know, that kind of thing. Or some new project that you've been waiting to launch, it's gonna cost $100,000, you know, new software or new something. It's probably not the year for that.
So for any staff, so we're having turnover, right? And we're
I'm
doing
not- yeah.
reorganization.
Right.
And so we're gonna be filling those. Maybe if, depending on the reorganization, we don't have to fill two.
Well,
We could just fill one.
less, you
but
know,
my-
a scenario might be, excuse me, but a scenario might be, you've got some openings, and now you've lost some funding, so now you may be in a position to say, do I want to refill those positions? That's part of the strategy, that you might do some shifting around organizationally to meet the need, but, and let something else go and not fill that position during that it's that kind of thinking. It's not, I'm sorry, I really interrupted you, so I apologize.
Please.
But it's that sort of flexibility that doesn't just keep going down the same path when there are things that are uncertain, that says, I'm thinking about this a different way. That's all.
Yeah, it's been my impression that the administrator has done these things with department heads informing all past budgets. And I could be misled there.
You are.
Yeah.
Because when I sit down and talk about these, we can go through and look at areas that were looked at. It might have been in a different way, I guess, but I feel like there's a narrative out there that government, county government is bloated and there's lots of waste. And I feel like every single year we're pinching harder. And this is gonna be a harder yet pinch. And so I just want to make sure that we're following our strategic plan and also understanding the uncertainty out there, that the sky, if the sky does fall, it hasn't fallen yet, but if it does fall, we can respond. In the meanwhile, I don't want to operate out of fear, right? I want us to be conservative, responsible, but strategic. And so that's why I appreciate the strategic impact planning. But one of the things in our strategic plan was another HR staff person, and so.
So that's already underway.
Okay, that's what I'm getting at.
We're
So
looking at,
nothing
we're
new
looking
is-
at next year's budget.
Yeah, and nothing new is nothing new. Like, that's how it always is, unless the board says, okay, we're gonna do that, and we will put it in the budget. But, yeah, it's good to spell it out. Are there other, I mean, and again, for different departments, I feel like we've gotten onto a fairly regular, certainly more professional capital expenditure replacement schedule. Are there other examples that are outside of the replacement schedule that would be a capital expense I'm not thinking of?
I don't know,
Okay.
but Brady maybe has a better idea about that, but,
Or like this special project funding?
you know,
what
like,
is-
let's say that the recycle center wanted to buy a new something, you
Oh,
know.
forklift because the old one and there's a deal.
No, that would kind of be a replacement, but
Right.
something new for processing, recycling, and they picked this year to put it in their budget.
Sure.
Or, you know, I don't know. It's
Well, that's
just,
how I was like, I'm trying to think of like
Right.
the practical, what does this do? What is this
Right.
doing aside from hoops jumping? You know, like that's,
Commissioner White? We don't make the decisions. They have ownership of their departments. They have the ability to make those decisions and to inform all of us. And if we have them, the strategic impact planning, if they have to just look at these 4 different bullet points about why are you making these changes or you're putting things there, that everyone, they're part of a whole team. We're all part of this whole team, and we're all making decisions based on the same criteria. And when I think of like Allison McIntyre or the highway engineer, they'll just say, oh yeah, well, this is why. It's not like these are hard questions at all. It's, for the listening public, what are the core services your department delivers? Identify the services funded with restricted funding. What are the unrestricted funding sources? And what the last one would be, of the 4 bullet points to be considered, what adjustments can be made to your department operations to address those impacts and maintain a high quality of service? And this is undoubtedly funding, state and federal funding. If and when we lose more, how can you keep your departments healthy and providing services? So, you know, it's like, what are your values? That would be a question, like, what are your values? You have to think about it, and then you really know. So I just think our department heads, they know what they're doing. This won't be hard. They got it.
Commissioner Gamble?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, words convey emotion and meaning, and so when you pick words, you want to be careful because you don't want to have it miscommunicate what intent is. And intent is the matter of, we are in a position to provide services to a community. We have to deal with the realities of the difficulties that come in challenging times. And so evaluating based upon value and an assessment, those disciplines are important. And as you're aware, when NACO, National Association of Counties, offered this course on budgeting, I jumped at it because I want to learn. I want to learn from others how they approach these things. And there's a questionnaire that they give you that you have to fill out in this process. That questionnaire, in most cases, as to the clarity of what we do in providing direction for staff, I had to answer no to. And so it's an opportunity for us to be able to look at how can we build integrity in processes that are structured with changing staff and whatever else that we as a county find are healthy for us, communicate the stewardship fiscally and responsibly for services to our community. So
it's going to be interesting to see, because this is somebody else helping to inform and refine, and we can celebrate what we do right, and we can learn from what areas where we can improve. And so that's why I'm looking forward. I want to be in a position, I'll just say it, I want to humble myself to learn what other people can teach me. And if that benefits us, I want to celebrate that. That's why we invite people to sit on an advisory committee. What do you know about this process that helps us? Because just because we're elected doesn't mean we know. It means we have opportunity to learn.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, off of that, maybe this is more for Commissioner Mills, but I didn't look at it as, I realize it's going to take some time, and, I don't think we're looking for a list of, if this happens, we're going to take your priorities and we're just going to start going down the list. It prepares us. We hope none of these things really affect us anymore, right? We hope that we get through December and all the planning and everything the department heads want to do kind of comes to fruition. But, I hope we use something like this in the future, and they're going to pick up the form they did last year too, right? And maybe make some changes, and we're going to kind of continue to have that information. I think since the time I've moved up here, and that's been just less than a decade, I've just seen, from my perspective, a little bit more transparency every year from the county in a lot of different areas, whether it's a CIP, whether, there's many different things that have happened over the years. This very group, the Budget and Facilities Advisory Group, was created to kind of, I think, add, it started before my time, but I think to add some information, add some transparency, get different perspectives. And those were a lot more trying times, right, when it was formed. I think we have a pretty good group now and good interactivity with the commissioners. But I'm hoping that it's just an extra level of transparency, additional level of information. Again, not just to budget advisory, or more importantly, commissioners, but that the community can see that, and if there are questions that pop up, we can provide that information. That's what I'm hoping through this process.
This group was formed in about 2017 when I worked with the president administrator at that time, and I really felt, because I was getting questions from the public about how come you're doing this, or what about that, hey, maybe we should have somebody sitting that represents our area out in the county. And so we've each had different people come forward. I will say that we'll have a new person joining us next week from my district, Amy Brugge, and I'll fill her in on all of this, but she volunteered after I put a plea out there that we had a vacancy for District 5, so we will have another person joining us.
Awesome.
But, that's the whole reason to have this citizens group and to join with the Budget Committee, because I felt it was important to get other opinions too, not voting, but a lot of opinions, and it's been really worthwhile. And I think, as you said, incrementally, we've been moving along with more transparency.
Yeah, sure.
So,
Right?
A couple of things. There's no clear statement about filling open positions. We have, no new increases. Maybe there should be a line here, consider carefully any replacement of open positions. The other thing is about basing on 2024, how much information of 2025 will the people have? Brady, maybe, I think you said you can get monthly reports, essentially, so they can really base it on 2025 to a large degree.
Get half the year,
Yeah,
get a pretty
yeah.
good sense.
Okay. So that first line about last year is probably,
sure, I can modify that. And Commissioner Mills, don't include new staffing, those are just suggestions. If you guys don't want to include those things, in the initial budget, if you want them to just put whatever they want in there, and then, I just thought, given the uncertainty, when Brady and I discussed it, that these three, the second, third, and fourth ones, were just a smart way to look at it. Just like, be conservative in what you're asking for straight up. Because of the uncertainty, otherwise you might be giving it back, or you might spend money early and then not really be able to follow through with it later, because funding goes away. So you hire somebody right away, and then, you're gonna have to cut your staff. So it's about viewing it conservatively, the last bullet there, which says, understand that your initial worksheet is a starting point that may need to be adjusted several times throughout the budget process. You know, so, you know, it's easier to add than it is to take away. And that was the thinking there with the basics, like, you know, start with a budget, but, you know, don't necessarily add new things, you know, just, you know, inflation, you've got to take into account the new union contracts. There are those things that are already increasing your budget. They're fixed, those are the constraints.
I think the key message is the flexibility this year. I mean, when we wrote some of those, let's say, tighter lines, there was 145% tariff on China. Well, now that's changed. So I mean, we're going to see, we could see lots of changes like that during the year. So, and what those effects are. So,
I guess that's kind of one of my points, is that
it may not be anywhere near as harsh as, you know,
Right.
it looked even a month ago.
Yeah, you know, I'd much prefer stay the course and be aware than, you know, curl up in a ball, and then we might be able to open that up again, you know. Because we're talking about services that we provide to our most in need largely, or basic services like roads and law enforcement. So I'm fine leaving the basics in there. I was just pointing out that I feel like 2 through 4 are a given. Like, that's the assumption, the normal assumption. I don't think you typically have departments asking for new staff every year. Like,
No, but they might be, haven't, you know, have waited to do that. And,
Yep.
you know, I think when I was the MIS director, for quite a few years, I needed an extra staff. And I remember one year in a budget process, people asked us to look at it, and I said, all right, I'll put it off another year. So, you know, we'll figure it out. And that's what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
that sometimes departments do change or grow, or you need somebody else or a different service you've been planning on offering,
Yep.
or,
Well, that all usually comes before the board, right? Like, it's not just put it in the budget and then,
Right.
and we'll see what the board thinks.
but you know, those things often are discussed ad nauseum too, right? So maybe what I'm suggesting here is that when they're putting their budget together initially, that they be conservative in what they ask for.
Yeah.
That's different from just that incremental budget that's there. And then look at that and then say, now, here's all the elements of my budget and how it's put together. And if I had to make a change, I'm starting to think about that like a 3-dimensional chess game, like, or a Jenga game. Somebody pulls something out down here, how do I compensate for that with the resources I already have? That's the intent of this.
Yeah, I do believe it's happening. I think it's good to write it out and have it as a process. I just don't want to be kidding ourselves about what this will do. Like, I think it's good. It's great work, and I appreciate everyone working on that. But I don't think this is going to just be now everything's different. This is like, okay, we're formalizing maybe processes that a lot of departments already kind of go through because they know that we're always trying to keep the levy down. So they are aware of trying to keep things lean. But I'm happy with both the basics as well as the strategic impact planning. I think will be helpful. But I really want to know what the MAT team says.
One of the things I'm thinking as I'm hearing this discussion is that this allows our department heads to prepare in a very similar fashion to what they've been doing before. But these very specific bulleted items, both for the basics and the strategic impact planning, provide us with a way to communicate with the public, communicate internally here within the county, and add to transparency. And that's the direction we have continued to go without whatever is happening currently at the state or the federal level. So I like it from the fact that it increases transparency And I would look forward to this becoming a process that would continue. It's not just about this year and these economic situations and uncertain times, but it's a good, healthy process to continue.
Commissioner Gamble?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The whole course with the National Association of Counties is to create frameworks, expectations, policies that are clearly defined, well-informed, that are followed. I'll use an example, whether it works or not. That if I'm bringing a group of people together to play a sport, they all know the end game is to win. That's what we want to do, is we want to win. But everybody has their different idea how we're going to do that. And the coach is saying, here's the lineman, here's what you do. And you say, all I have to do is push the guy out. Yeah, but you need to know that the running back's going through this hole. So when you push, you don't just push. You push this direction because that's the way it's set up. So having plays and practicing and the discipline of it leads to the end goal, which is winning. So you can't just say, we want to be conservative and save money here. This is how you do it. And this is the game plan to be able to achieve that. And NACO, I think, in this presentation is going to tell you, this is what's tried and true and best practices. And when AMC had their Government 101 meeting and I went in, they said, what would you like to have on the agenda? I said, I'd like to have best practices. Take best practices for every discipline that the county has to do. And let's learn from one another. And that's the opportunity we have. And when things are challenging, now you find out really your worth as people that are elected, as are hired, and we see it as an opportunity to feel good about doing what we're hired, elected to do, which is to roll up our sleeves and work hard at serving people. And structure helps you do that, just like it does in sports and it. And there are teams that have gifted people, no structure, no culture in the locker room, and they continually lose and people wonder why. But when you create culture where people can do their best and you create structure, you're ensuring more chance for success. I think it's a positive thing. It's an opportunity.
So we brought this before the committee today, Committee of the Whole. Are there any other comments from committee? Any other questions from you?
Again, I do appreciate this. I'm not trying to say this is dumb. This is smart.
Well,
this is smart. And I certainly have concerns, and just with with the bigger our mindset and just fear. But no, this is very smart. I agree with Commissioner Gamble about best practice, and I really appreciate the work that you've put into this.
Thank you.
It's very helpful to have it spelled out, and hopefully it'll be very helpful for department heads too.
So I did share it with one department head, Rowan. Of course, he has the same view I do, which is from both this angle and that angle. And he thought it was good.
Yeah.
But I think the way the MIS budget is prepared and what you see every year, it
Right.
already incorporates these kinds of things.
Yeah.
So any other comments or questions?
I'm just anxious to have it go to our department heads and look forward to the MAT team and their response.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Brady, you get it promoted, okay?
I think we should, hopefully, it's presented in a way that looks forward to an opportunity.
Right.
There's a challenge, but it's
Right.
an opportunity.
Yeah, and I
It is
think-
an opportunity to show.
Right. I think from the MAT perspective, I think they worry about what's coming and what that might mean.
No, they do.
And so I think there's an opportunity to kind of almost set the guidelines for the conversation that they will have with the board moving forward as well. That they can expect that the conversation is going to be around services and strategies to manage those services with unpredictable things, rather than saying, line item number 33. Can we get rid of that? You know what I mean? I think the MAT team will welcome, that kind of a conversation that helps them navigate what's ahead. I think they need to have that conversation with the board that's constructive and you're on the same team, looking at the same things, these services, what's valued, what are the impacts, how do we make that work? And I think there's a way that once they get past, you're going to make me write a narrative. Yeah, well, Brady and I'll help you with that. But that there's an opportunity there to have a more collaborative conversation with the board and not one where, don't cut my budget and, we got to cut your budget. And, but more like working together. How do we take care of the citizens of this county when this happens, And I think they'll welcome that, actually.
I think it's seen as coming alongside as opposed to coming from above.
Right.
Yeah.
So-
Okay then. Thank you all
Right,
for coming
thanks for
again.
having us.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
And there be no further business, our meeting is adjourned.
I guess I was just wondering, are you guys good with me going ahead with this then?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Blessings and blessings.
And what was the person's name
Do you
on
want
the end?
this?
Josh Engel.
Josh Engelman.
He lives